your latest article on your website, it's about Cash Patel's girlfriend. The lawsuit against the podcaster, right-wing podcaster. It seems that Cash Patel is getting personal for Cash Patel, and how is he going to influence the process? What is going on with Cash Patel and his girlfriend, and what is the problem?
Well, this is part of the larger theme that we're going to discuss today, which is about the MAGA grassroots, the conservative grassroots, and especially the youth activist base of the GOP openly revolting against the party leadership and against the Trump administration because of Israeli influence over Trump and over all of his people, including his FBI director, who in December 2024, when he was groveling before Israel to secure his nomination and confirmation as FBI director, declared in a Fox News interview that America needs to prioritize Israel. So Kash Patel has had several very bad months as FBI director, historically bad months as an FBI director. And it really started in July when the FBI signed on to the memo with the Department of Justice to not release the Epstein files. And Trump was obviously very anxious about what was to come out in the Epstein files. The House Democrats today have released new emails from Jeffrey Epstein showing that Donald Trump apparently knew that Epstein was abusing young women. And remember, Virginia Giuffre, who committed suicide, whose new book accuses Ehud Barak, probably accuses Ehud Barak, a certain prime minister, of viciously abusing her. Virginia Giuffre came to Jeffrey Epstein through Donald Trump's salon at Mar-a-Lago. So Trump was nervous about this. Kash Patel puts the brakes on the Epstein files. But Kash Patel had cultivated his reputation among the MAGA grassroots on the basis of his promise for massive disclosure of files, the Epstein files, the full client list, the JFK files, and the files on exposing the deep state's plot against Donald Trump. And he started a foundation called Fight with Cash that was going to wage punishing lawsuits against all of the deep state enemies of Donald Trump. And so the base thought, oh, we're going to take out, all these slime bags in the FBI and the CIA, and we're going to learn who killed JFK, and we're going to learn about this massive child sex trafficking network. And then Cash, in one of his first major moves, he shuts it all down along with Pam Bondi, who said she had names of hundreds of Jeffrey Epstein victims on her desk. So Kash Patel, since 2019, had been living with a man in Las Vegas under very mysterious circumstances named Mark Muldoon, who is a notorious timeshare scammer and Republican donor who lived in a very elite gated community. Kash Patel has been living in his house since 2019. They traveled to Scotland together. Kash Patel, when he starts emerging as a major figure in Trump world, he meets this young wannabe country singer who's 20 years younger than him, Alexis Wilkins, who also was working at a place called PragerU, which is a pro-Israel propaganda outlet that poses as a conservative leadership training institute. And it's run by, might seem confusing now, but this will help you understand these lawsuits. It's run by someone named Marissa Straight, who is herself a former Israeli intelligence agent who worked for Israel's Unit 8200. So Alexis Wilkins comes on as an influencer. She somehow connects with Kash Patel. When he becomes FBI director, the relationship comes out and she's in the limelight with him, although they're unmarried. She's sort of posing as his partner, or is his partner. And the angry online MAGA grassroots, America First grassroots, starts to concoct a theory that Alexis Wilkins is actually a Mossad honeypot. She's Mossad because, according to them, PragerU is an Israeli intelligence cutout run by a former intelligence officer. And she was basically brought to Kash Patel to turn him out and to get America's secrets and to make sure that he didn't release the Epstein files, because Jeffrey Epstein appears to have been a Mossad asset himself. And there is a strong basis to consider Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad asset. I don't know about Alexis Wilkins. And I found this conspiracy theory to be funny and sort of illustrative of the right-wing anger over Trump completely selling out and Kash Patel selling out and over Epstein. Then it gets even worse after Charlie Kirk is shot. Charlie Kirk is shot, and Kash Patel is caught doing what he's been doing throughout his tenure, which is hanging out with elites and partying. He was at one of the most exclusive restaurants on the Upper East Side in Manhattan called Rouse when Charlie Kirk was shot. Charlie Kirk was supposedly his longtime friend. And from the restaurant, from dinner, Kash Patel tweets, "The subject is in custody." The FBI claimed they caught the suspect. I don't know why he called him the subject right away. Turned out they hadn't caught him. Then he said the subject has been released, providing no other information. This is normally something that would be handled by FBI spokespeople through press conferences after very careful consideration. But Kash Patel's at dinner tweeting this. He loses the confidence of many people in the FBI, in the Trump administration. And from there, things continue to get worse. A former FBI agent named Kyle Seraphin exposes, this is an ultra-conservative FBI agent, someone who is on the MAGA side, exposes that Kash Patel has been using his private jet to fly out to date nights with his girlfriend. He flew to Pennsylvania to see his girlfriend sing at a professional wrestling concert, sing the Star Spangled Banner at a pro wrestling event. And so what does Kash Patel do? He fires the FBI veteran who is in charge of their fleet of jets, which they use for emergency investigations if a child is missing, for example. And then he pushes the online monitoring sites, which monitor his jet, to stop monitoring it. That was his response. Then I learned that he's been filing these lawsuits against podcasters through the director of his foundation, who is his personal lawyer, Jesse Banal. So Kash Patel is not targeting the deep state. He's targeting America First podcasters like Elijah Schaffer, someone who was helping form the narrative for the pro-Trump movement during the Biden era. He's targeting Trump's own support base. Why? Because they made jokes about his girlfriend being a Mossad honeypot. And through the chair of his foundation's law firm, Alexis Wilkins is suing these figures, Elijah Schaffer, Kyle Seraphin, and someone named Sam Parker, for $5 million each for insinuating that she's a Mossad honeypot. And it's obviously coming from Kash Patel. So you have a top government official, Trump's top cop, in charge of the FBI, which is basically this giant domestic police and intelligence network, using his girlfriend as a proxy to target right-wing podcasters who basically have no money of their own, with massive lawsuits. It is a gigantic threat to the First Amendment in the United States. And the lawsuit about against Elijah Schaffer, one quarter of it relates to Elijah Schaffer's personal opinions about Israel and Israeli influence in the United States. So it's not even about his girlfriend, which means they're taking this beyond a personal dispute into a political dispute about their views of Israel, suing people just for being Israel critics. And this should be a huge scandal. It is a huge scandal within the right-wing grassroots and online, but mainstream US media knew about these lawsuits for a long time. I mean, they knew about them for days. And if you look for any reports about it, they're basically these small little clips with no context that barely drove any awareness about them. And it wasn't until I reported this in detail and went to Elijah Schaffer's lawyer, for example, went to Kash Patel's lawyer and started to flesh this out, that this really erupted as the major scandal that it is today. And this contributes to the conflict it's helping to drive the conflict we're seeing on the right about Israeli influence, which is splitting the right, completely splitting it.
Yeah, exactly. Seeing Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro attacking Tucker Carlson, and they want to cancel Tucker Carlson. Why is that? Mark Levin has decided not to debate Tucker Carlson at TPA USA.
Yeah.
Why is that? If he's concerned, if he has a point to argue, why is he not trying to communicate or debate his point of view with Tucker Carlson?
Well, it's for the same reason that these figures won't debate me. They'll lose. Mark Levin would be exposed in front of what is supposed to be his own base. He'll be booed. The crowd will be solidly with Tucker Carlson. The other reason is there's not supposed to be a debate. In Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro's world, right-wing organizations like TPUSA, which are connected to the leadership of the Republican Party and are basically conservatism incorporated, are controlled by their donors, by the donor class, which is heavily consists of Zionist billionaires, Jewish and Christian Zionist billionaires. And so there can't be a debate, because if there's a debate, some inconvenient truths will slip in and start to red pill the minds of the youth, the grassroots of the conservative youth. That's why it was so scandalous when Charlie Kirk allowed the debate between comic Dave Smith and Josh Hammer, who's one of Netanyahu's key voices in the US media, at TPUSA back in July. That wasn't supposed to happen. You never saw that before at conservative organizations. So Tucker Carlson relayed to Mark Levin in a series of text messages, Mark Levin being another one of Netanyahu's top propagandists at Fox News, that there was this offer for a debate. And Mark Levin said, "I would never do this. You're disgusting." And Tucker Carlson called him a coward, which he is. And that pretty much settled it. There is no debate. There's no marketplace of ideas in which Israeli influence will be determined within the right. What Mark Levin's crew intends to do is not to cater to the opinion of the future of the conservative movement, which is conservatives under 40. It's to exert the power of the donor class, the Zionist billionaire class, to shut down this debate. And that's what they just did at the Heritage Foundation, which is the most important, powerful think tank outside connected to the Republican Party, where the president, Kevin Roberts, had issued a call for a debate and defended Tucker Carlson after he hosted Nick Fuentes. And Kevin Roberts was treated to 2 hours of ritual humiliation at the hands of his staff and threatened by donors. One donor threatened to pull $500,000 out. And this split the most important think tank of the conservative movement, with the president basically retracting everything he said in defense of debate and declaring that he was sorry for defending Tucker Carlson. It's very clear, to the extent there is a conservative grassroots, it's very clear to all of them that the leadership is basically astroturfed, chosen by donors through an undemocratic process, and they've lost all credibility. But the way that the kind of George W. Bush, neoconservative, Republican, liberal coalition, like centrist Republican, pro-war, Nikki Haley, Marco Rubio, Mark Levin, Dick Cheney coalition is going to try to reassert control is through its ability to assert donor control. And in that regard, they're winning.